Forgiveness is often misunderstood. We grow up hearing that forgiveness is something we do for others, that it's about giving them grace, letting them back in, or making peace with them. But the truth is, forgiveness has very little to do with the other person and everything to do with us. When someone wrongs us, the pain they cause doesn't just disappear. It settles into our bodies, our thoughts, and our emotions. It changes the way we see the world and ourselves. It becomes something we carry, whether we realize it or not. And the weight of that pain can be suffocating. We replay conversations, rethink our choices, and wonder if things could have gone differently. We feel anger, resentment, betrayal. We hold on to the hurt because it feels justified, because we think that by staying angry, we are somehow protecting ourselves from being hurt again. But here's the thing, holding on to anger doesn't punish them. It punishes us. Carrying resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. The person who hurt us might not even think about what they did. They might not lose sleep over it. They might never apologize, never acknowledge the pain they caused, and never give us the closure we crave. And if we wait for them to make it right, we give them power over our healing. We put our peace in their hands, and that is a dangerous place for it to be. Forgiveness, then, is not about making them feel better. It's not about fixing the relationship or giving them another chance. It's not about pretending nothing happened. It's about releasing the grip that pain has on us. It's about making a conscious decision to let go, not for their sake, but for ours. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It does not mean excusing bad behavior. It does not mean allowing the same person to hurt us again. What it does mean is that we refuse to let the past dictate our present. It means we are no longer willing to give space in our minds and hearts to someone who has already taken too much. Forgiveness is an act of self-preservation. It is a radical decision to choose peace over bitterness. It is standing up and saying, I refuse to carry this burden anymore. It is understanding that we cannot control what others do, but we can control how much power we allow them to have over us. One of the hardest things about forgiveness is that it doesn't always come with justice. We think that if we forgive, we are letting them off the hook, but forgiveness does not mean we erase accountability. It simply means we are no longer waiting for an apology, a resolution, or a sign of remorse in order to move forward. There will be people who never understand the pain they caused. There will be people who justify their actions, who rewrite the story in their favor, who will never see themselves as the villain. And that's hard. It's unfair. But waiting for them to make things right is like waiting for a storm to apologize for raining. Some things are just out of our control. What is in our control is how we respond. We can choose to hold on to the anger, to replay the betrayal over and over again, to keep ourselves tethered to the pain, or we can choose to release it. Not because they deserve it, but because we do. Some people mistake forgiveness for weakness. They think that letting go means giving in. But true forgiveness takes strength. It takes courage to say, I will not let this define me. It takes resilience to move forward without an apology. It takes self-respect to set boundaries and never look back. We do not forgive to repair relationships. We do not forgive to ease someone else's guilt. We do not forgive because they asked for it. We forgive because we deserve peace. We forgive because our healing is too important to leave in someone else's hands. We forgive not because they need it, but because we do. Boundaries are often misunderstood. People associate them with walls, with shutting people out, with being cold or unforgiving. But boundaries are not about pushing people away. They are about protecting our peace. They are about understanding where we end and someone else begins. And most importantly, they are about recognizing that forgiveness and boundaries are not opposites. They can and often must coexist. Forgiveness is an internal process. It is about releasing resentment, letting go of the bitterness that keeps us tied to a wound. It is about freeing ourselves from the emotional chains of anger and pain. But forgiving someone does not mean giving them continued access to us. It does not mean we have to invite them back into our lives, trust them again, or pretend that nothing happened. Forgiveness and reconciliation are two separate things, and one does not always require the other. Setting boundaries after forgiving someone is not an act of hostility, it is an act of self-respect. It is recognizing that just because we have chosen to let go of the emotional burden of resentment does not mean we have to re-engage with someone who has proven themselves to be harmful, untrustworthy, or incapable of respecting us. Some people believe that if you truly forgive, you should be able to restore the relationship to what it was before. But that belief disregards the reality that trust, once broken, is not automatically restored through forgiveness. Trust is rebuilt through consistent action, not just words. When we set boundaries, we are not punishing the other person. We are simply acknowledging what we need in order to heal. If someone has hurt us repeatedly, lied to us, manipulated us, or taken advantage of our kindness, it is not only reasonable, but necessary to limit their access to us. That does not mean we hate them. That does not mean we hold a grudge. It simply means we have learned from the past and are making choices that align with our well-being. The difficulty in setting boundaries often comes from the fear of how others will perceive them. We worry that we will be seen as unforgiving, difficult, or even cruel. But boundaries are not about how others feel. They are about what we need. And the people who truly care about us will respect those needs. The people who challenge or disregard our boundaries are often the very ones who benefited from our lack of them. There is a misconception that love and boundaries cannot coexist. But real love, the kind that is healthy, balanced, and mutual, respects boundaries. Love does not demand access at the expense of someone's emotional well-being. Love does not force forgiveness to mean full reinstatement of trust. Love understands that sometimes the most respectful thing we can do is let go. One of the most powerful forms of self-growth is recognizing that we do not owe unlimited access to those who have shown us that they cannot handle it with care. We can wish them well from a distance. We can hope they find healing, that they grow, that they become better, but we do not have to be part of their journey in order to forgive them. We do not have to sacrifice our sense of safety, peace, or happiness to prove that we have let go of the past. Some people will never understand why we set boundaries. They will see it as rejection, as punishment, as an unnecessary barrier. But their inability to understand does not mean we are wrong for enforcing them. We are not responsible for making others comfortable at the expense of our own well-being. Forgiveness is a deeply personal decision. It is something we do for ourselves, to free ourselves from the weight of resentment. But boundaries are also a personal decision. They are something we set for ourselves to protect ourselves from further harm. Forgiveness does not require us to erase the lessons we have learned. It does not mean we forget what someone has shown us about who they are. It does not mean we let people continue to treat us in ways that hurt us. We can forgive and still say, I choose not to let you be part of my life anymore. And that choice is not an act of bitterness. It is an act of wisdom. Closure is one of the most misunderstood concepts when it comes to healing from pain, betrayal, or loss. We are often told that in order to move on, we need closure, and we assume that means a final conversation, an apology, or some kind of resolution that makes everything make sense. We wait for the other person to explain, to take accountability, to give us the words we think we need in order to heal. But the truth is, closure is not something we receive from others. It is something we choose for ourselves. We crave closure because we believe it will give us peace. We think that if we just get answers, if we just understand why they hurt us, why they left, why they betrayed us, then we will finally be able to move forward. But more often than not, the closure we imagine never comes. The person who hurt us may never be able to give us the explanation we seek. They may not see their actions the way we do. They may refuse to take responsibility, or worse, they may rewrite the story in a way that absolves them of any guilt. And even if they do give us an explanation, it often does not bring the relief we expect. The problem with waiting for closure from someone else is that it keeps us stuck. It ties our healing to their willingness to engage with us. It gives them control over our ability to move on. And that is a dangerous place to be, because some people will never give us what we are looking for. Some people will never admit they were wrong. Some people will never offer the apology we deserve. Some people will never be able to provide the kind of clarity that erases our confusion or pain. If we make our healing dependent on them, we will never truly be free. Closure is not something that exists outside of us. It is a decision we make when we choose to accept what has happened, even without all the answers. It is deciding that we do not need another conversation, another explanation, another attempt to make sense of what cannot be made sense of. It is understanding that some chapters do not get a proper ending, and that is okay. The idea that closure comes from a final conversation is comforting, but it is also an illusion. Conversations do not always bring peace. Sometimes they bring more pain, more confusion, more frustration. Sometimes they reopen wounds that were just beginning to heal. Sometimes they give the other person another opportunity to manipulate, gaslight, or twist the story in their favor. And sometimes, even when we get the conversation we wanted, we walk away realizing it did not change anything at all. Closure is not about getting someone else to validate our pain. It is about validating it for ourselves. It is about recognizing that what happened was real, that our feelings are valid, that we do not need someone else to acknowledge our experience in order for it to be true. It is about deciding that we deserve peace, even if the other person refuses to take accountability. Choosing closure for ourselves means letting go of the need for resolution. It means accepting that some things will never make sense, that some people will never change, that some endings will always feel unfinished. It means understanding that the only person who can truly give us peace is ourselves. It is not easy to walk away without answers. It is not easy to accept that we may never hear the words we want to hear. But real closure is not about getting the perfect ending. It is about choosing to move forward, even when the ending is messy, even when the story does not make sense, even when the person who hurt us refuses to make it right. Closure is not a conversation. It is a choice to stop seeking validation from the one who broke us. A choice to release ourselves from the need for explanations. A choice to give ourselves the peace we have been waiting for someone else to give us. Some people do not deserve re-entry into your life. This is a difficult truth to accept, especially when we are conditioned to believe that forgiveness should always lead to reconciliation. There is an expectation that if we have truly let go of anger, we should be able to welcome people back with open arms. But the reality is, some people have lost the privilege of access to us. Some people have shown through repeated actions that they cannot be trusted with our hearts, our energy, or our well-being. It is natural to want to believe in second chances. It is comforting to think that people can change, that the ones who hurt us can grow and become better. And sometimes they do, but change is not something we should have to wait around for. If someone has disrespected us, betrayed us, or made it clear that they do not value us, it is not our responsibility to keep the door open in case they decide to be better one day. When someone repeatedly harms us, disregards our feelings, or fails to take accountability for their actions, they are showing us who they are. They are showing us what we can expect from them. And it is up to us to believe them. It is up to us to recognize that not everyone deserves the chance to come back and do it again. We are not obligated to give unlimited chances to people who have proven they will misuse them. One of the hardest things about shutting the door on someone is the guilt that comes with it. We wonder if we are being too harsh, too unforgiving, too closed off. We question if we are making a mistake, if we are being unfair. But the truth is, protecting ourselves is not cruelty. It is self-respect. We do not owe anyone continued access to us simply because they want it. Wanting back in does not mean they have changed. Saying they have changed does not mean they have done the work to make it true. Real change is not about words. It is about consistent actions over time. There will always be people who try to manipulate their way back into our lives. They may play the victim, make excuses, or use nostalgia to remind us of the good times. They may promise that things will be different, that they finally understand, that they will do better. And it is tempting to believe them because we want to, because we want closure or healing, or to believe that all the pain had a purpose. But letting someone back in should never be based on hope alone. Hope is not a strategy. If someone truly values us, they will respect our boundaries. If someone truly cares, they will show it through their actions, not just when they want back in, but consistently, even when no one is watching. There is a difference between being bitter and being wise. Shutting the door on someone who has repeatedly disrespected us is not an act of hate. It is an act of wisdom. It is recognizing that we cannot afford to keep learning the same painful lesson over and over again. It is choosing peace over chaos, stability over uncertainty, and self-worth over desperation. It is understanding that just because we have history with someone does not mean they deserve a future with us. Some people will never understand why they are no longer welcome in our lives. They will see it as unfair, as unnecessary, as cruel, but their perception does not define our reality. People who genuinely care about us do not put us in positions where we have to question our worth. People who truly respect us do not repeatedly do things that make us doubt their intentions. And people who love us in a way that is healthy and whole will never require us to lower our standards in order to keep them around. Healing is not just about letting go of the past. It is about protecting our future. It is about recognizing patterns, trusting our instincts, and refusing to keep giving chances to people who have shown us that they are not capable of handling the responsibility of being in our lives. Some people do not deserve re-entry, not because we are cruel, but because we have learned. And the lesson is worth holding on to. Silence is a valid and powerful response. In a world that values loud opinions, immediate reactions, and constant engagement, silence is often misunderstood. People assume that silence means weakness, avoidance, or a lack of confidence. But silence is not the absence of a response. It is a response in itself. It is a deliberate choice, a conscious act of self-preservation, a refusal to engage in battles that do not deserve our energy. There is power in knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. Not everything requires a reaction. Not every insult, argument, or betrayal demands a response. Sometimes silence is the strongest statement we can make. It communicates boundaries without needing explanation. It denies people the attention they crave. It refuses to validate disrespect with a reply. Choosing silence is not about submission. It is about control. It is about deciding where we invest our energy and refusing to waste it on conversations that go nowhere. People often mistake silence for weakness, but it requires more strength than reacting impulsively. It takes discipline to hold back when provoked, to resist the urge to explain ourselves to those committed to misunderstanding us. It takes wisdom to recognize when a response will not change anything, when words will only fuel a cycle of toxicity, when engaging will drain us more than it will resolve anything. There are moments when silence speaks louder than words, when the absence of a response holds more weight than any argument we could make. Silence is a form of boundary setting. It is choosing not to engage with those who have proven they are not capable of meaningful dialogue. It is stepping back from conflict that serves no purpose. It is protecting our peace when others try to disrupt it. Not everyone deserves access to our thoughts, our emotions, or our time. There are people who provoke only to get a reaction, who argue not to find understanding, but to exert control, who listen not to hear, but to respond. Engaging with them is a losing battle. Walking away, refusing to participate, is a statement of self-respect. Silence is also a tool for clarity. It allows us to observe, to reflect, to process, without the noise of outside opinions. It gives us space to think before we react, to determine whether something truly requires our energy or if it is best left alone. In silence, we gain perspective. We recognize patterns, see people for who they are, and understand situations more clearly. We realize that not everything needs our input, that some things resolve themselves when we step back, and that the best way to handle certain situations is to disengage completely. There is a misconception that speaking up is always necessary for empowerment. While using our voice is important, so is knowing when to withhold it. Power is not always in the words we say, but in the restraint we show. There is dignity in refusing to engage in petty disputes, in walking away from unnecessary arguments, in knowing that our energy is too valuable to be spent on things that do not serve us. Silence can be an act of defiance, a refusal to be manipulated, a way of taking back control when words are used as weapons against us. People who are used to controlling narratives fear silence because they cannot manipulate what is not said. They rely on reactions, on engagement, on defense. When we choose silence, we take away their ability to twist our words or pull us into unnecessary conflict. We remove ourselves from dynamics that drain us. We choose where our energy goes, and that is a powerful decision. Silence is often misunderstood because we live in a world that equates presence with participation. But being silent does not mean we are absent. It does not mean we are passive. It does not mean we are indifferent. It means we are intentional. It means we are choosing where to place our focus, what to give our energy to, and what to leave behind. It is a powerful, deliberate act of self-respect and control. Healing happens in peace, not in conflict. It is easy to believe that healing comes from confronting every wound, engaging in every difficult conversation, and seeking closure from those who hurt us. But real healing does not thrive in chaos. It does not flourish in an environment of constant conflict, tension, or emotional turmoil. Healing requires space, quiet, and a sense of safety that conflict cannot provide. When we are caught in conflict, whether it is with others or within ourselves, our energy is spent on survival. We become focused on defending ourselves, on proving a point, on making sense of things that may never make sense. Conflict keeps us in a reactive state, constantly responding to what is happening outside of us instead of tending to what is happening within us. Healing, on the other hand, requires stillness. It requires the ability to sit with our emotions without being pulled in different directions by external forces. It demands that we step away from the noise long enough to actually listen to what our minds and bodies need. There is a misconception that resolving conflict is the same as healing. While resolving issues can be an important part of growth, healing itself does not come from the act of confrontation. It comes from what happens after. The stillness, the reflection, the rebuilding of ourselves in a space where we feel safe and supported. Conflict may bring clarity, but clarity alone does not heal wounds. Only peace can do that. Peace allows us to process pain in a way that conflict never can. It gives us the ability to see things with perspective instead of through the lens of emotional intensity. When we are in conflict, our emotions often drive our actions. We speak from a place of hurt, we react from a place of anger, and we engage in ways that may not serve us in the long run. But in peace, we gain the ability to look at our wounds without the urgency of needing to react. We can sit with them, understand them, and begin the work of releasing them. Healing and peace means choosing environments that nurture rather than deplete us. It means stepping away from relationships, conversations, or situations that keep us in a cycle of pain. There are people who will continue to provoke, to manipulate, to refuse accountability. Engaging with them does not heal us. It keeps us trapped in a dynamic where we are constantly defending our pain instead of moving past it. True healing happens when we choose to remove ourselves from spaces that do not contribute to our well-being. Peace is not just the absence of conflict. It is the presence of emotional safety. It is being in spaces where we do not feel the need to be on guard, where we can breathe without the weight of unspoken tension. It is surrounding ourselves with people who respect our boundaries, who do not demand explanations for our healing process, who do not force us to engage in conflict as a means of proving our growth. Peace is where healing becomes possible because it is where we can finally exhale. Healing and peace also means giving ourselves permission to let go of the need for resolution. Not every wound comes with an apology. Not every betrayal will be explained. Not every person who hurt us will acknowledge their role in our pain. Waiting for these things only prolongs the conflict within us. True healing happens when we decide that our peace is more important than our need for closure. When we accept that we do not need another person's accountability in order to move forward. Choosing peace over conflict is not about avoiding hard truths or suppressing emotions. It is about creating an environment where those emotions can be processed without external chaos, making it harder. It is about choosing what serves our healing rather than what satisfies our temporary emotions. It is about recognizing that some battles are not worth fighting, not because we are weak, but because we are prioritizing our well-being over our need to be right. Healing is a journey that requires patience, and patience is hard to cultivate in conflict. When we are in a constant state of defensiveness, there is no room for softness, for self-compassion, for the quiet work of mending what has been broken. But in peace, there is space for growth. There is space to sit with our pain without it consuming us. There is space to rebuild ourselves in a way that conflict never allows. Healing is not about winning arguments, proving points, or getting validation from those who hurt us. It is about finding a place within ourselves where the pain no longer controls us. And that place is only found in peace. Healing is a deeply personal journey, one that requires intentional choices about where we place our energy and what we allow into our lives. It is not found in conflict, in waiting for closure from others, or in granting reentry to those who have proven they do not deserve it. Healing happens when we choose peace over chaos, silence over unnecessary battles, and self-respect over the need for validation. It requires boundaries, the willingness to walk away, and the understanding that not every story will have a perfect resolution. Closure is not given, it is chosen. Forgiveness does not mean returning to harm. And real growth comes from creating an environment where we can heal without the weight of external conflict. The most powerful decisions we make are often the ones that prioritize our own well-being, even when others do not understand them. Healing is not about what we lose. It is about what we gain when we finally choose ourselves.